Have you ever felt frozen on stage not knowing what to do with your hands? Or maybe your gestures felt awkward and out of place? Well, you are not alone, and today I will show you how to use your gestures naturally so that your body language actually supports your message instead of distracting from it. Hi everyone, I'm Ilya. I help non-native professionals excel in their conversations in English. And in this video, you're going to learn how to make your gestures look natural, powerful, and purposeful. By the end, you'll know exactly what to do with your hands so that your message lands with maximum impact. Let's go. Most people fall into two camps. The first one is the frozen statue with your hands glued to the sides, no movement at all, or some awkward fidgeting. That used to be me. That was a very debilitating feeling of not knowing what to do with my hands. And this would make me very anxious because I knew that it didn't look persuasive at all, but I didn't know what to do with it. And then the other camp is the overactors, waving arms around as if they're acting out every single word. Both strategies are not what we want to have because they both take attention away from what you're actually saying. The solution here is very simple. I'll give you an analogy that makes it so much easier to gesticulate. Think about how we read. Punctuation marks like commas or full stops break sentences into meaningful chunks so that our brain can process the information more easily. And the font, whether it's bold, italics, or all caps, tells us the tone and emotion behind the words. Most people don't realize this, but gestures work exactly the same way in speaking. They help us break up ideas, link them together, and signal the tone and intensity behind what you're saying. It's like giving your audience visual punctuation and formatting so that your message is easier to follow and feels more engaging. And here I wanted to share with you some really common gesture types that you can take on board right now. Starting with something super easy, illustrating numbers. When you mention a number from 1 to 5, use your fingers to illustrate it. For example, you can mention 2 things that you're going to cover in this presentation, or 3 reasons why something is happening. It can also be just one thing that you wanted to share, or this one idea that you wanted to give to people. This gesture will make this message stronger, or at least it will attract more attention. Next, when you're talking about 2 things, when you're comparing them, it's going to be easier for me to process this information if you split the space in front of you into 2 parts. First, you're going to talk about one thing, and then when you compare it to the other thing, you move on to the next part, and now you start gesticulating in this part. This separation of the air in front of you makes it easier for me as a listener and a viewer to process the information. You can also weigh options when you're talking about choosing something or balancing 2 ideas. Like, should I ask you to subscribe or leave a comment or both? Next on the list is slicing the air or chopping. This is a firm downward gesture to make your point stick. Use this chopping gesture when you want to make your delivery more dynamic and active. You can also slice the air like this when you talk about something that doesn't exist or something that's a wrong path to take, like don't do it, it's not the way to go, and so on. One very important point here, make sure not to fall into the camp of overactors. What I can see very often is that some speakers over-rely on this chopping gesture, and whatever they talk about, there's always these very abrupt gestures of chopping and slicing the air, which makes their delivery a little bit too rough, and a little bit too much dynamism can actually be tiring. Next one is showing the scope. Hands wide for some big problem and close it all up for a small scale. Be on the lookout for the words that show scope in your script. There might be some words like enormous, huge, or conversely tiny and little. All these words can be animated. When there's something to emphasize or underline, you can literally do so. You can underline some specific parts of your sentence. You can also use this laser focus gesture or zooming in. Point or narrow your hands when you're focusing on one thing. Now, this is how you can practice it all. Take a script of your speech or generate one for training purposes only, and mark all the places where you can gesticulate. The golden rule that we follow here is we need to animate all the parts of your speech that can be animated. Are there any numbers? Maybe there are 2 options that you're talking about, or 5 reasons why something happens. Maybe there are some words that show the scope and the scale of things. Spot such places in your speech and make notes. There's no specific way to mark it. The most important thing is it has to be clear for you personally. Record yourself delivering this part of the speech and then watch the recording with the sound off. The goal is to look natural, emphasizing your points without overdoing it. Remember, gestures should feel like a visual extension of your words, not a distraction. If you found this helpful, hit subscribe so that you don't miss any more tips on public speaking. And if you have any other questions or aspects of communication in English that you find challenging, let me know in the comments, and I'll make sure to make a video response covering it.